Moving on to the 21st, the Seattle Seahawks. They are, I wouldn't say losing, but they have not signed DJ Fluker or J.R. Sweezy, so those guards are kind of questionable right now. So I have them going with offensive tackle Dalton Risen from Kansas State. You know, may not be the best offensive lineman left in the draft, but one of the most reliable. Definitely someone we can work with. There's a lot of offensive line for the Seahawks who can mentor him. Obviously, you have Dwayne Brown at the left tackle. You have Justin Britt, who's played all three positions of linemen. So I think that the Seattle bolsters that run game in Risen. Might need to work on the passing, but his running power is very high. So
definitely, I also agree that the Seattle Seahawks need to address that offensive line. They've been needing a line for the past 4 or 5 years and continue to draft skill position or go their defensive route. And I think this is the year they finally go get Russell Wilson some protection. I have them going a little different route, though. I got a little switch up in my draft. John Gruden's been very aggressive in his first year head coaching and does not care what move he makes. If he thinks it's right, he's going to make it.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
The Seattle Seahawks have also been linked to a couple offensive lineman trades with Max Unger and Jimmy Graham a couple years ago. So I think they go on the other end of that deal and they allow Oakland to trade up. Oakland will trade their offensive guard Kelechi Osemele and the 24th overall pick to jump up and then double down on John Gruden's defensive end position and pass rushing, and they'll go with their guy at Montez Sweat, edge rusher at Mississippi State. The guy had one of the most impressive combine stats for a defensive player this year, and I think that really opened a lot of eyes. I do see that he could go way earlier, as you had him at number 8. I just think with the team's needs along this draft order, he somehow falls to 21, and then the Raiders know he won't fall to 24, so they go get their guy in Montez Sweat.
Yeah, especially with the Seahawks having like 4 or 5 draft picks, they're known to trade down, and I think that they don't trade out of the first round like they have done in the past, but they definitely trade down and definitely bolster that offensive line. So definitely a good pick. Going to the East Coast in Baltimore with their new quarterback, Lamar Jackson. I have them drafting a wide receiver in Paris Campbell out of Ohio State. Kind of the reason why I did this is because they don't have a number 1 receiver. You know, they had Michael Crabtree, but he's been on decline for a couple of years, and he'll put out some good numbers, but it's not really what you're hoping for from number 1. So I think we definitely think they get I think he had the fastest time in the 44 wide receivers and just a deep threat for young quarterback Lamar Jackson. So 2 young skill players in Lamar Jackson and Paris Campbell, and I think that they are going to be similar to like what I had with Buffalo with DK and Josh Allen. So they're going to be drafting Paris Campbell. Definitely feel like Lamar Jackson needs some help on that offense, and I think that Baltimore addresses this with Paris Campbell. Very speedy. So we're going to be seeing some more throws, maybe some more options with the wide receiver end in Paris Campbell. So that's what I think the Baltimore Ravens will do with the first round pick.
I agree. I think the Baltimore Ravens are losing a lot of their defensive depth this year, and their veterans that they're either releasing or just declining their options. And I think that they go address that issue in the back end of the draft. This draft is very deep as far as depth on both sides of the ball, but especially defense. And I think anything that they don't get and solve in free agency, that they go defensively later rounds. So I have them going with a wide receiver as well. And N'Keal Harry, wide receiver out of ASU. I think, just like you said, they need to go get that guy for Lamar Jackson and really complete that offense and see what his potential can bring.
22nd to 23, going down to Houston, down south. You know, they had a lot of success on the offense with Deshaun Watson coming from ACL tear, putting up very good numbers for a quarterback coming off that, especially a running quarterback. And you got Lamar Miller in the backfield, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller. They're also releasing the Honey Badger Teron Matthews, so you might see him try and pick up a safety here. However, I think that Deshaun Watson is going to get some protection just because he's your future franchise player. You need to give him some protection. So I think they're going to go Gregory Little, offensive tackle is Ole Miss. So have him going at 23. There are other, offensive linemen on the board, maybe one or two, but I think that Mr. Little is going to go down to Houston and play with a young contention team who is going to be hopefully winning at least one Super Bowl in the next, 3 to 5 years. So.
Yeah, definitely. Houston's on the rise, and I couldn't agree more with Deshaun Watson being your franchise quarterback and already going down with a serious injury. You need to get that offensive line right, and I agree they go with Gregory Little, offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. I think that's your guy at 23, and you don't take a chance with anyone else, and you go sure up that blind side for Deshaun Watson.
Yep. So moving on to 24th, the third pick for the Oakland Raiders. To sell this one to move up, so you'll never know what you're going to get, especially this late in the draft. However, I really think that they're going to address their offense and Josh Jacobs from Alabama, running back. I think they do this because, Marshawn is going to retire in the very near future if he will not by the beginning of next season. And I just think you need to get that offense right, make sure it's not solely on Derek Carr to win you games. And I think that Josh Jacobs is kind of that guy. A lot of great running backs have come out of Alabama. I think that Oakland is going to choose their main guy in Josh Jacobs once again. So 24th pick is going to be that. You might need to help me. Boom. Perfect.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right. So my 24th pick, I have the Seattle Seahawks after they traded with Oakland to move down to the 24th. I think they doubled down on their offensive line needs, and they really hit it hard in this first round this year. I have them drafting Dalton Risner, offensive tackle out of Kansas State University. I think with, like you mentioned earlier, their free agent lineman most likely departing, I think they revamp that offensive line and see what they can do with a good front.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Seahawks have turned back into their old ways of run heavy. Obviously, you still have Russell Wilson at the home, so you will be getting a lot of play action, but got to protect him at some cost. So definitely see them taking some type of offensive lineman. The Philadelphia Eagles at 25 starting to get closer to the end now. I have them taking Byron Murphy, cornerback out of UW. I just think that sure they have Jalen Mills, Ronald Darby, ex-Buffalo Bills, but a lot of injuries are always happening in that secondary, especially this past year. So I think they go out and get a young guy who they can kind of sculpt in kind of what they think. And I think that Byron Murphy is that guy. Sure, he may be a little short, but his ability to move his hips and his feet and kind of read the quarterback size and his agility kind of make up for that. And so I think that the Phillies are kind of going to go and get their short, aggressive defensive back, and I think that's Byron Murphy.
Definitely, yeah. I agree that the cornerback position is a question mark this year. I don't know if they necessarily draft 25 a corner, but I could definitely see if Byron Murphy is still available that they might go in that route. I think Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, finally breaks his tradition and he goes running back in the first round. I have him taking Josh Jacobs, running back out of Alabama. I think the guy is the best running back offered in this draft this year. Most complete back, comes from Alabama, knows how to win. I think a lot of this has to do with whether or not the Eagles land Le'Veon Bell in free agency. I could honestly see them still taking Josh Jacobs at 25, even if they do kind of bolster that running back depth with a young guy and a superstar in Le'Veon Bell, and I could see them really going strong running back moves this year.
What about Jay Ajayi, though?
I think they let Jay Ajayi walk. His cap hit and just the production that he is given, mostly due to injury, hasn't been there. If they have an opportunity to get a guy in Jacobs and
do you think they release him, or that they trade him and get something worth out of him?
I think they just decline his option and let him walk. And just be like the same thing, they kind of had the dilemma with Nick Foles, and do they tag him and trade him? Do they let him walk? They chose to let him walk to save cap. I think it's kind of the same. Definitely not as big of a cap hit in Jay Ajayi as Nick Foles did, but
Yeah.